Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to Noodle as well. She just decided to make her appearance and be involved in this episode of my limited podcast series on the 12 signs of the Zodiac. Hello again, my name is Brie Rhiannon, and I'm so glad that you are back for this episode on Aquarius. And so just to remind everybody, we are learning each sign of the Zodiac actually throughout the entire axis. So really, it's also helpful just to plug this, if you guys want to listen to these by axis as well, to talk about Leo on the other side of the axis, and then how that is rooted and creates the energy of Aquarius and then sends it right back to the energy of Leo. And the reason that we are learning through axis helps us learn different foundational building blocks of astrology and just the way that it works in the construction of the zodiac wheel, but also through polarity as well. I do want to quickly plug my outfit, even though there is a little noodle in the way. So I am wearing a themed outfit for each sign of the zodiac, and today I have on my alien shirt because the stereotype for Aquarius is that Aquarius is just the weirdest one and the weirdest sign. And sometimes people who are Aquarian, they might even call themselves an alien. They may identify as an alien and all kinds of things, but this is the sign of the zodiac that really truly marches to the beat of their own drum. And so that's why they can be a little bit weird, okay? But yeah, I just wanted to plug that. My alien shirt is super, a very alien as well. And I have my little alien stuffy behind me as well for this episode. So we will be diving into the foundational building blocks of not just astrology, but the construction of the entire zodiac wheel in a way that will help you learn the 12 signs of the zodiac and the zodiac wheel and astrology in general, just in a more simplified way that can help you with your pattern recognition, connecting dots, so that it's less about memorizing 12 different signs of the zodiac and what they all represent and what they all mean and what they all do and all of these things, because astrology is admittedly a very, very vast system of knowledge. And when I'm talking about Aquarius, it's a good time for me to talk about even how I got here, because I do have a first house Aquarius North Node, and my mother is an Aquarius sun and has multiple placements in Aquarius actually as well. And I grew up with my mother being a professional astrologer, and I spent a lot of time that she did not even know that I was spending outside of her closed office door, in which she was recording cassette tapes because I was born in 1990. So it's like, this is the 90s. And my mom was recording cassette tapes of the horoscopes that she was doing for people so that they could listen, as well as giving them like typed up like a version that they could read. So that was the way that she did things as an astrologer. So also this is a good time to even talk about me naming this podcast projects, the Brie Rhiannon tapes. It actually is an ode to like my mom and the fact that my mom taught me everything that I know, and then I've even just explored things myself. And it's through my Aquarius North Node that I have explored things in order to apply the laws of physics, quantum mechanics, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and even fluid dynamics principles to astrology and intangible energy and constructing the zodiac wheel through axis and polarity. And it's like a plus and a minus on a battery. And I always teach my clients and anybody that I work with to start manifesting and generating your entire life in reality through your North Node and the focus on your North Node, because it's seen as your destiny point. And so I have spent the last 5 years of my life working in what's called test and measurement in the engineering industries. And I had a really heavy emphasis on aerospace engineering, which is actually seen as the sign of the zodiac. Like Aquarius rules aerospace engineering, and it's the sign of like science, modern technology, and things like that. And so because my first house Aquarius North Node is where I started to kind of just allow myself to open myself up. I did it in two different ways because I'm teaching everything through polarity and I work through polarity, and I came up with all of my science-based methods of manifesting with the moon, and I do things a little bit differently. I haven't mentioned that in any other episode, but this is a good episode for me to even mention that. And I do some trailblazing type stuff that it took me posting on the internet and going viral on TikTok in order to even know or realize that I was doing things in a different way, that no one else is doing them. And that is also ruled by Aquarius. And the sign of Aquarius, like I said, they're known as the weird one, but I said they march to the beat of their own drum. It is the sign that also rules like independence and also revolution and things like that. So it's a sign and energy that just tends to do things differently than other people do. And that is very apparent in what has happened with me and these methods that I've come up with. Because, for example, when it comes to working with new moons and full moons, the regular spiritual community, and also like just me and like my mom, I did this with my mom as a kid. I was taught that all new moons are best for manifesting and starting new beginnings, and it has the word new in it, so like duh, right? And then all full moons are considered best for releasing and letting go. So after I started to pay attention to and apply all these engineering principles really, and the laws of physics and that kind of stuff, to astrology, I started to notice that I felt called, just as somebody who reads energy and channels energy, to flip my new moons into opposite day whenever there were interplanetary retrogrades. So Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, Venus retrograde, and also the outer planetary retrogrades felt more like based in personal energy. And like, how do I have, like I have a Scorpio stellium, which that's ruled by Pluto in modern astrology. So if Pluto is retrograde, do I feel like things are backwards for me? So retrograde energy is backwards and chaotic. When you are looking at the planets through a telescope, they literally physically appear to move backwards in the sky. And even though we know that a planet is never really moving backwards, it is still a perspective that we have from Earth, and perspective is reality. So what I noticed in the energy is that the energy turned backwards and chaotic, and it flipped the polarity of the energy, meaning the direction in which the energy was traveling, on its head. And I decided that, well, when I'm experiencing interplanetary retrogrades, it's just across the board for everybody. Your new moons become better for releasing, and your full moons become better for manifesting. And these are not spiritual buzzwords. Manifesting means energy is flowing towards you. Releasing means energy is flowing out and away from you. So that is also why within all of these episodes, I am teaching through the axis and polarity, which is the plus and the minus on the battery. Okay. And really, this all came through Aquarius energy for me, working in the aerospace industry, working in the renewable energy industry. I was doing battery testing and things like that. And I was simply surrounded by and learning electrical engineering principles, mechanical engineering principles, having to adhere to the laws of physics when it comes to engineers being able to use equipment to do their jobs, and working on large scale projects. I did work on the Artemis project as well over the course of the last 5 years. So I did just kind of want to start with that, and start with a little bit of introduction about me and how I even got here is very much through Aquarius energy and my first house, Aquarius North Node, because guess what? I have a degree in fashion merchandising and marketing. So I have zero education in engineering, aerospace, renewable energy, or things like that. And so what I did is release blockages that would be preventing me from accessing my Aquarius North Node energy. And then also when energy was flowing towards me, I simply asked the universe to put that energy in my reality and I wanted to start living out of my Aquarius North Node. I did not even interview for one of the jobs that I ended up taking that was associated with the aerospace and renewable energy industries. I was recruited. I was asked, do you want to do this? So I just want to talk about that slightly for a little bit for when we first talk about this sign and what it did for me and the exploration of that and how it has even, resulted in what you are watching today. And the education that I am now putting out into the world really came through Aquarius energy. So whether you think that's cool or not, I just wanted to mention it. So back to what we are doing. Building through axis, polarity, plus and minus on the battery, but also foundational building blocks. So we always start with learning the house first, and then we build other building blocks on top of that. So we're going to go over the planetary rulerships. Then that takes you into the element rulership. Then that takes you into the mode, which happens to be the entire axis. And then the very last, we will take a look at the symbol, because if you forget literally everything else, you can look at the imagery of the symbol and your brain will go towards the other places of all of these rulerships that are stacking on top of each other, so that astrology, even though it is this vast system of knowledge that feels very daunting and overwhelming to learn, can become more simplified for you, and you can start to use it as a tool within your own life to further not just your self-understanding, but your understanding of the human experience, the way that it operates, the way that the energy of this world with us living in the cosmos, I like to say we're all just reacting to cosmic energy, and that cosmic energy is still physical, even though it is intangible. And we can believe in intangible energy ruling our life because we believe in Wi-Fi, we believe in GPS. We might not be able to see those bands of frequency with our eyes, but we know that they exist and they run and they rule our entire life, okay? So where are we at with Aquarius? We are in the 11th house. And the reason that we want to learn the house and the rulerships associated with the house system first is because it does not matter what your birth chart looks like. The definitions and assignment of the house system do not change. So even though, unless you have an Aries ascendant and Aries rising on your birth chart, you have to know your birth time in order to run this. This is tropical Placidus astrology, okay? So unless you have an Aries rising, your 11th house is not necessarily ruled by Aquarius, okay? It's going to be ruled by some other sign of the zodiac. So I like to describe that as you are putting the sign of the zodiac and their flavor on top of the house. But whatever the 11th house is for you, it will contain the rulerships and spectrum of frequency of definition of assignment of energy that I'm about to go through. So this is the house of really shared vision, is how I like to describe it. And you can also remember that by remembering you are rooted in the other end of your axis within Leo and the 5th house. And Leo is the house of individual self-expression and self-vision. And then that's how you end up rooting this in the other end of the axis with Aquarius and the 11th house, and you get shared vision and shared expression. So that makes this the house of community. It is the house of finding your tribe, is the phrase and association that I really like to associate with 11th house and with an Aquarius energy, is its resonance, okay? It is that you are back in, because also this is a receptive house, and I want to point that out, that you started with a projective house with the 5th house in Leo, and that is energy that is coming out and away from you, and you are expressing yourself, and that is being seen by others. And so then the other polarity on the other end of the axis, because each axis is a plus and a minus on the battery, in the 11th house and with Aquarius, it becomes receptive. So then that's even how you find your community. That's how you find your tribe. That's how you find like-minded people that possibly express themselves similarly to you. And that is how you are received by them, and how you are received determines whether or not they accept you or reject you, okay? And so what I want us to look at in the 11th house is that this is really a house of resonance versus dissonance and what that looks like and what that means. So when you look at it in terms of science and you have like a tuning fork, you could have two tuning forks, and if I have a tuning fork in my right hand and I make it sing and I have a tuning fork in my left hand, as long as they're far enough away from each other, the tuning fork in my right hand is not going to cause the one in my left hand to sing, and I have to hit that one in order for it to start resonating and vibrating and make noise. But what I can do is I can hold the tuning fork in my right hand up to the tuning fork in my left hand, and it causes that tuning fork to sing. Okay? So that is really what is going on in the spectrum of frequency of definition and assignment in this house, is that you as an individual tuning fork, which is like the Leo start of this axis, is coming up to another tuning fork in your physical vicinity and your presence, and your energy causes that tuning fork to then develop their energy and sing and frequency. And then either, if you're looking at it in terms of music, these notes either sound good together, maybe they're the exact same note, and then you're matching frequency at that point, and that jives really well, and that works really, really well, and you become friends with that person, and they become a part of your community. Maybe you are different, but the notes are different, but they're harmonizing, and so they sound very, very beautiful together. And then that is another form of resonance in which you will want to become friends with that person. They become part of your community. They become part of your tribe, right? Now, conversely, the other perspective of that is that perhaps these tuning forks do not sound good together and they are dissonant. And in music, that means that there are notes that are clashing. And when we listen to them, that means that they are not making a harmony that sounds good to us, and we want to cover our ears or make it stop. And then the only way to get out of that, like that dissonance that is occurring, is to remove those tuning forks from each other. So this is also the house of detachment and like attachment, both, because it's always, you know, a spectrum, right? So it's like on one side of the spectrum is attachment, and on the other side of the spectrum is detachment. It's all duality. Okay. So this is also the house of independence, but it's also the house of the collective whole. Because all of these things are, when they are a spectrum of frequency of definition, they are attached. So in order to make up the entire collective whole, and what is the collective whole? It's like all of humanity, right? It's everybody. That is made up of individual, independent people put together in order to create the collective whole. So this is the house of both independence, where we're getting that phrase, marching to the beat of your own drum, right? Aquarius is weird. This is the house that's like all this is, oh, they're weird. They're an alien. What are they? They're not necessarily, maybe they're not being accepted by other people. There is that part of it. But then it also is the house of community, togetherness, building of organizations, tribes, tribalism, like that kind of stuff. Okay. So that is really what encapsulates the 11th house in general. And like I said, your 11th house, whatever it is, if you're looking for clues of your social interactions, being accepted by others, seeking resonance with others, community building, finding community, things like that, that is whatever is ruling your 11th house on your birth chart, okay? And it's the same for everyone. So that is why we are learning what is the definition of assignment of the energy of just the house first, okay? After we understand the house, the next building block that we are going to put on top of it is the planetary rulerships. And Aquarius is going to take me a little bit longer than some of the other signs and houses, because Aquarius is one of the signs that has two rulerships. And the reason that it has two rulerships is because there is a discrepancy between ancient astrology and the rulerships associated with ancient astrology and modern astrology. How and why did this happen? It happened after we invented telescopes and we were able to discover the outer planets that we were not necessarily able to see just down on the ground with our eyeballs, okay? So that is why Aquarius has two rulerships. The ancient rulership is Saturn, and the modern rulership is Uranus. It is important to know both because knowing both helps you still construct the zodiac wheel through the polarity, and you have to know both to have your understanding, and especially for this particular axis as well as the axis that came right before this, which was the Cancer Capricorn axis, because the rulership for both Capricorn in the 10th house and Aquarius in the 11th house in ancient astrology happens to be Saturn. And that can lead to some confusion. How is that working? I don't understand that. And it's because of the rulership on the other end of the axis between Cancer and Leo being the sun and the moon. And so maybe in people's minds, they feel like there is polarity between the sun and the moon, and that is true. It's just a different type of polarity than built by the axis, because the polarity that you're building through the axes, it's about grounding. Okay. And it's like these energies are actually grounded within each other, which is why I describe it as a plus and a minus on the battery. It's symbiotic. It is, you cannot have one without the other. They are rooted within each other. They are grounded within each other in order for operation to be occurring. Okay. And the polarity between the sun and the moon not taking place on the same axis when we look at these planetary rulerships of the zodiac wheel is your clue that even though there is polarity, because one is receptive and one is projective, so the directions of the energy are moving and they are taking place from the 4th house to the 5th house, there is still that equal and opposite reaction of energy. They're reacting to each other. They don't balance each other. Okay. And I want to point that out because it's very, very important to understand that lunar energy is not balanced by solar energy. They actually disrupt each other, okay? So what is the energy that balances lunar and solar energy? Saturn. It happens to be Saturn because of when you're building by axis, that Capricorn Cancer axis, that moon is on one side and Saturn is on the other. So you still have that plus and the minus on the battery. And then the next direct axis that you build between Leo and Aquarius, we've got Leo and the sun on one side, and then we have Saturn on the other. Okay. So you also need to know that because if these energies go into detriment or they become ungrounded, what does that look like? Like your lunar energy become ungrounded. That's your emotional world. So if you feel ungrounded emotionally and you are spiraling emotionally, you can then go ground in Saturn energy in some way. And understanding these multiple rulerships of Saturn is important for that, because also, the sun, the solar energy that you contain, if that is out of whack, if that's not grounded, well, that can manifest as identity issues. It can also manifest as a lack of self-love, lack of self-confidence, a lack of leadership with yourself, like all these things that the sun rules, that also is grounded in Saturn energy, but it's grounded in a different way. Of when it comes to the lunar energy being grounded in Capricorn and Saturn, that's like discipline and boundaries and things like that. And also like taking your private energy, going out in public. It's like you want to look at it that way. Versus the solar energy getting into detriment with Aquarius, you need to interact with other people who resonate with you. They are going to become external authentication of your core identity and your self-expression, and the way in which you are received by others can send your whole identity out of whack. And so it's important for you to interact with like-minded people on the other end of the axis and find and build your community and find your tribe in order to have your self-confidence and feel secure in your identity and things like that. So that's found here in this Saturn rulership, because you still have, Saturn is still the engineer, okay? I want Saturn to be viewed as the engineer, and this is also deconstructing from certain planets being taught as malefic versus benefic. That's a variation of the word malicious and also beneficial, okay? And Saturn is really viewed as a villain of the planetary system because it rules these things that can feel difficult, like lessons, boundaries, disciplines, burdens, responsibilities. Even me just saying those words, maybe we're frowning and we don't like it. So we need to not personify the planets. These planets are not out to get us. Like, as energetic systems, they are all tools. All energy is a tool. All energy is a gift. So deconstructing from some of the mainstream astrology methods of teaching that Saturn is out to hurt you and Saturn is out to get you and Saturn is mean, take that out of your vocabulary. Saturn is an engineer. Saturn is the engineer of reality. It's why it also is the timekeeper and rules time. Saturn is father in time in Roman mythology and stuff like that, okay? So Saturn is, really, they're a systems engineer. And in order for a system to function properly and also optimally, Saturn is about optimization. Saturn arrives to help you perform and achieve better, okay? So with the solar energy and the sun being on the other side of the axis and grounding itself in Saturn, if you're looking for community and you cross boundaries with people, that's not going to work. It's like, oh, you cross a boundary with somebody, now they don't want to be your friend or they don't want you around or whatever it is. So that's why this energy is being grounded in Saturn, okay? So I want to point that out. Now, what is the other planetary rulership for this house, 11th house, and Aquarius? In modern astrology, Aquarius and the 11th house is ruled by the planet of Uranus. So after we built our telescopes and after we started using them for astronomy and we discovered Uranus, this became the astrological association for Aquarius for many, many reasons, because they really truly are resonant in their rulerships. So it is also the planet that rules rapid change, the unexpected, revolution, the collective hive mind. All of these things are found in the planetary rulership of Uranus, but it's also the planet of rebellion. So there you get that phrase again, marching to the beat of your own drum. Okay? So Uranus as a planet, rebellion is associated with revolution too. So you see how this is a spectrum of frequency of definition where all of these things are the same. They're the different side of the same coin and things like that. So also independence. Literally the July 4th is called Independence Day. And we associate the American Revolution with gaining our independence from Britain. And there's a whole bunch of independence days all over the globe now from everybody who gained their independence from Britain. And so all of them went through revolution in order to gain their independence. And then that takes us right back to the collective whole and like what's best for everybody, what's best for the whole collective, because the collective is made up of individual independent parts. So do you see how Uranus as a planet is just really, really frequency matching with the house and also the sign, and everything is stacking on top of each other in order for you to just really connect all of these dots. But taking it back to Saturn, and Saturn being an engineer, that's how you can remind yourself that Aquarius and the 11th house is also the house of modern technology, high technology, like the advancements of technology that we have made really even in just like the last 50 years or so with aerospace, the internet. The internet is ruled by Aquarius and the 11th house because guess what the internet did? It literally connected the entire collective whole. Before the internet existed, we couldn't just like get to know somebody on another continent. Just like that, just like in this exact moment, I could go talk to somebody who lives in Africa or Europe or Australia or wherever. And it's this level of connectivity that we never experienced. And we are building entire global communities at scale that we could not build before the internet existed. So that's where you see that this is the house and sign of modern high technology, the telecommunications, aerospace, because also global travel requires airplanes. We're flying on airplanes, so that's why it's aerospace. But then GPS, in order to know what's going on for the entire globe, the entire world, you launch a satellite up into space, and that's still aerospace technology, okay? So if you look at all of these rulerships, you can see how they all connect with each other and how it helps you really remember. It's really just associative at the end of the day of just like, this is the house of community. This is the house of shared vision and shared expression. It's the house of the collective whole, but also what makes the collective whole is independent people and independent parts. So that makes it the house of independence and individuality in that case. And that whole phrase, march to the beat of your own drum. And then it still even takes you back to the alien on my shirt, because aren't we exploring space to find aliens? Well, I hope so. So going back to our building blocks, you learn your house first. I explained why. Then you stacked your planets on top of it. And you can see that both of these rulerships are associative. Saturn is the engineer. This is the house of science, technology, modern technology. Engineers are involved in all of that. Then we have Uranus on top of it, which is the planet of rapid change, the unexpected, the hive mind, collective whole. Awakening is in there. So it's like spiritual awakening is found in that planet and everything. Freedom, rebellion, revolution, like all of these things are found with that Uranus rulership. And then what is our next building block that we stack on top of that? It is going to be the element. So the element you also can learn through Axis very, very easily, because you're never going to be combining earth and fire. You're never going to be combining water and fire. All of your axes, it's either fire and air or earth and water, okay? So that really is a process of elimination for you to remember. And when we're rooted in Leo, Leo's ruled by the sun. What is the sun but a hot ball of fire? And then that takes us straight to our elemental rulership on this axis, which is automatically going to be air and has to be air. And then you can even see how that is taking us into our associations with this. What is the sun? Hot ball of fire. We used Aquarius and this house of rulership for aerospace and aerospace engineering, and that includes solar science. So it's right there. It's right all there in the same axis. It's all associative. It is rooted within itself and within each other. Each side of the axis cannot exist without the other. So air, what is that as an element? It is always intellectual. So it's always a smarty pants sign is what I call it. Of course, a sign that is ruling science, modern technology, having Saturn as the engineer on top of it. It's like, of course, we needed, if Saturn is an engineer and the first sign was Capricorn and it was Earth, we needed this second rulership of Aquarius, because it isn't an engineer intellectual and living up in the mind and rational and logical in order to figure everything out? Of course they are. So we needed this rulership with Aquarius in the 11th house and all of this energetic representation, specifically even just to tie to Saturn and the way that the energy of Saturn functions. So now also remember that this is a receptive house, okay? So this is not energy that is flowing out and away from us. It is receptive. And when you're thinking about receptive air, that's a lot of observation. It's the taking in of energy, because air functions both ways. There are projective air signs and there are receptive air signs. The projective air sign is Gemini as the winged messenger. So to go out and to deliver those messages, that archetype has to be projective. But then we have two receptive air signs between Libra and Aquarius. And these are the air signs that are very, very observant, taking in a lot of information around them in order to figure things out. And that can definitely be seen within the rulerships of both Libra and Aquarius, because Libra being the decision maker and the scales and weighing things in order to make decisions, you got to make a lot of observations and you got to be very analytical. So that's found within the element of air here. Okay, so what is the next building block that we are going to build on top of the element to further our understanding of this house and the sign of the zodiac? It's the mode. So because the mode is the same for the entire axis, as long as we also remembered Leo, we can remember that this is a fixed mode, okay? So mode tends to sometimes freak people out when they are learning astrology, because you sit down and you're like, oh, there's only 3 modes. There's cardinal, fixed, and mutable modes. And there's 12 signs of the zodiac. And by math, that means I need to remember 4 per mode. And that feels hard and that feels daunting. Well, you don't need to remember each one by one and figure it out that way. You can just remember that if it's by axis and you're building everything by axis, the entire axis is the same mode all the way through, because we have to keep that functionality. It is the way in which the energy is going to perform. And you can remember the modes because you're applying the laws of physics to all of this throughout the construction of the zodiac wheel as well. So because you're starting with the Aries Libra axis, it's the entire thing is the same mode, and it's cardinal, and cardinal modes are always the start of every season. And the last axis that we built was also a cardinal mode with the Cancer Capricorn axis, because it's the start of the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And the Aries Libra axis is our start of the spring equinox and the fall equinoxes. The equal and opposite reaction to starter energy, which is how you remember cardinal modes, is automatically the stoppage of motion, which is fixed, okay? So that's how this is a fixed mode the entire way through. And fixed energy can be stubborn, it can be controlling, it can be very set in their ways and things like that. And then that's also how you know that the equal and opposite reaction to the energy that came before it is always going to be a mutable mode next, because mutable is adaptive. So the equal and opposite reaction to both starter energy and the stoppage of motion energy is adaptation energy and go with the flow energy. And I can become whatever version of energy I need to become at any given point in time based on the context clues and the context of any given surrounding energy to me, okay? And so that's also why we are learning building the construction of the zodiac wheel by axis. It's not just polarity, it's deeply about the mode, okay? So we're building our foundational building blocks. We are stacking them one on top of the other. We started with the house, everything that ruled. Then we put the planet on top of it. Then we put the element on top of that. Then we put the mode on top of that. Now let's say you have forgotten everything. This is why I put the symbol last, is that for the vast majority of the zodiac, I talked in the Capricorn episode about that one being an outlier and how that makes sense for systems to be an outlier. And we have the same planetary rulership here of Saturn being an engineer, and they are a systems engineer. The system has to function properly, and we see that again. So the other outlier for the symbol in the 12 signs of the zodiac that I always say, well, you can look at the symbol and it'll take you back to everything that maybe you slept and maybe you forgot, and you're trying to remember all these rulerships and definitions of assignment between the house and the planets and everything and how everything functions, right? So I mentioned in the Capricorn episode that one was an outlier for the symbol, that it's hard to look at the symbol and just like allow that to take you to all of the definitions of assignment of the house and the sign of the zodiac. Aquarius is a bit the same, because this is the symbol of the water bearer, even though it is an air sign. And so a lot of people accidentally mistake Aquarius for being a water sign, and they struggle to remember that it is an air sign because of the symbol. So the symbol, I can help with mostly actually the emoji keyboard, and not necessarily like a drawing or a painting of, someone pouring water out of a vase is like what the water bearer actually usually looks like. But if you type in Aquarius into your emoji keyboard and you look at the drawn symbol, what it is 2 stacked spiky squiggly lines on top of each other. If you turn it sideways, straight up, it's lightning. It's literally the lightning symbol. But stacked horizontally, what that is rain and lightning coming down from the sky. And this is actually the sign and house of the zodiac that does rule electricity and lightning. And you can get that through remembering, Uranus, rapid change, sudden flashes of insight and things like that. Aquarius, if you want to call Aquarius the mad scientist, whenever you imagine the mad scientist, in my mind, it takes me to Frankenstein and like that video image, or even from the movie of him making Frankenstein, and he electrocutes him, or he harnesses lightning from the sky and things like, and he's just like building his monster by like making it turn on through electricity, right? So that is really where the symbol takes me when I look at it. And when I understand it from that perspective over the actual mythology, like of the water bearer, it does take me straight into Aquarius, 11th house, all the like Uranus. It is the house of revolution, the high technology, also rapid shifts, sudden change, all of these things. You get it more from the drawn symbol. And when your eyes know what the drawn symbol is, that can help you remember, Aquarius is not a water sign, it's an air sign, and it's associated even with the weather and stuff like that. But like I said back in the Capricorn episode, you have to have outliers. You have to have outliers, especially in engineering and systems engineering. There's always going to be something that like doesn't actually make sense and is like throwing your system off, and it's giving you a hard time. And in the engineering world, we'll call it like a headache or a problem child or like whatever it is. It's the outlier. It's the outlier. And you have to have it. Like in any kind of system, you have to have the outliers. And so it's funny to me that the two outliers when it comes to the methodology that I'm developing, where taking a look at the symbols helps you remember what everything else was if you forgot all of it, and that's why you learn the symbol last. The two outliers are associated with Saturn, which I'm calling the engineer, and I'm associating all of this with system engineering, and that what you have to do is understand that outliers will always exist, and you have to accept them for what they are, and that includes, taking me right back to Aquarius ruling, detachment. Full circle. We just come full circle that you have to detach from allowing the outlier to bother you. And also the outlier is the weird one. So there we get taken right into Aquarius being the alien, being the weird one, marching to the beat of their own drum. So there we go. My methods still work. There's still a method to the madness. We can still find a way that it makes sense, even though my intention is to help you learn astrology learn astrology easier. So either you can look at the symbol and it helps you, or it doesn't. But within my system of methodology, I am calling out what the two outliers are that will be more difficult for you to look at the symbol and be able to take you back to everything that you forgot. It's a lot easier on the other end of the axis, bringing it back to the whole axis, with Leo and the symbol being the lion. And that's a lot easier to be like, confidence, leadership, all these like strength. Oh, wow, it's the strength card in tarot. That makes sense. Here you go, right? So other end of the axis on your symbol totally works. This end of the axis, I am going to call it an outlier and say, yes, I will fully admit that it is harder. Okay, so now that we understand all of our rulerships and all of our building blocks and the assignment of the spectrum of frequency of definition of all of the energy contained within all of this, I want to talk about mainstream or pop astrology, or like whatever we want to call it, and making sure that we understand the duality of all of the signs and houses and all of these rulerships and the way that the energy like is understood. Because when it comes to like mainstream astrology or pop astrology, we will talk about personality traits, right? And when we talk about personality traits, we're typically, especially with stereotypes, we're putting people into a box and we are pigeonholing them, and we are typically labeling certain things as weaknesses that, you know, or like assigning villains of the Zodiac or like whatever it is. And we're saying like that's a weakness, or I don't like it, or however you want to phrase it. And that what we really need to do is we need to embrace and understand the duality of all of the energy that we're learning about. And what does that really mean? Okay, duality means that nothing is really good or bad. Nothing is really positive or negative. Everything actually just is. And it's all, you know, even though it's two sides of the coin, it's all the same coin. It's that kind of concept, right? And that's also really important when it comes to talking about these personality traits of Aquarians, that we are calling them like weird. And perhaps these people have even a hard time finding their tribe and finding their community, even though they are the community builders and they're the people that help people find their like-minded people and seeking resonance and all of these things. If we are taking a look at people with Aquarius energy and we are calling them the alien on my shirt, and like even the alien on my shirt, he looks a little scary. He's not like your regular, nice, fun, cartoon looking alien. He looks like I'm not sure that I would want to be friends with him. Like, I'm judging a book by its cover. And if this alien on my shirt walked up to me, I would maybe be scared. And I would just be like, I don't know. I don't know if I want you in my tribe. I don't know if you're my person. I don't know if you're my people. You look a little scary. So Aquarius energy, we tend to put in a box and we call them the weird ones. And they do tend to be the movers and shakers, and they tend to be disliked. Like, again, being that sign, that energy that also rules like revolution and rapid change and things like that. What I see happen with people that have heavy Aquarius placements isn't just that they are marching to the beat of their own drum and that they are hopefully being genuinely, authentically themselves and just like detaching from, because remember, this is the energy, this is the house, this is the sign that also rules detachment and attachment. They have to detach themselves from people who do not accept them and do not like them, and they just have to move on, and they can have a revolving door of people in their life. But what I really see is this rapid change of frequency more than anything. And it's because Aquarius, as the mad scientist and also as the air sign and also as the receptive air sign, and they're doing all of this observation and all of this learning at all times, they're usually also pretty into like self-improvement. And they are changing themselves like very, very rapidly. And they are also engaged in a lot of problem solving. And that even comes from that Saturn, the Saturnarian rulership of being an engineer, because what is an engineer besides a problem solver? And then, of course, this element of air living up in the mind, and it's rational, it's logical. So because they are looking at the problems in the world that they want to solve. They're looking at the problems in themselves that they want to be solving. And also they're this embodiment of both the collective whole and the individual self and the independence, right? So it's like this reflective mirror that's living in their own energy. They are rapidly changing. Their frequency is rapidly changing. And the way that the human experience even works, or the way that like reality generation works, or living on the earth plane works from a scientific perspective, is that we are all generating our own reality through our frequency. And our frequency, you know, takes place in the mind, but also it's like the human system has two electrical systems. The heart is the other electrical system. They operate like relatively independently of each other. That's like another Aquarius thing. And that frequency projects out and away from us. And then the universe or the physical plane responds in the laws of physics that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And our same frequency is automatically sent back to us. And that is how we generate our entire reality. So when people are in this Aquarius energy of constant self-improvement, constant problem solving, and they're changing a lot. Like they're changing, their frequency is rapidly changing. They're going through a personal revolution just at all times that is ongoing and not stopping. Their personal frequency changes, and then they suddenly like don't necessarily resonate with somebody that they resonated with maybe even like a couple of weeks prior. It can be like very, very quickly. So this is also why it's like a sign of like this social house and like community building. It's like meeting other people. So it tends to be a pretty social sign if you have heavy Aquarius placements. And again, like what do I mean by heavy Aquarius placements? Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or the ascendant, the rising sign. Okay. So these people that are labeled as weird by everybody else, are they? You know, it's just like we're labeling it as a weakness, and we're like, oh, they're the weird ones. I don't want to be friends with them. They need everybody to know that they're different. They need everybody to know that they're weird, because that can come with this energy. It's like, I'm different. I'm doing things differently. There can be that. I'm not saying that that's not true, and I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. That it's like Aquarius, we don't use this word anymore. I'm like, bring back the word hipster. Bring back the word hipster. We used to call everybody hipsters. We used to make fun of people for being hipsters. We used to accuse people of being a hipster, even if they weren't, to make fun of them and put them down and make them feel bad. And hipster, as a phrase, is deeply associated with Aquarius, because it's like we were looking at people that we labeled as hipsters, and we were like, you need everybody to know that you're oh so different and oh so special, don't you? That you listen to music that nobody else listens to, or you're into art that nobody else is into, and you're into underground stuff, and aren't you just oh so special, and aren't you oh so different, and that makes you oh so special, and you have a superiority complex that you're better than everybody. That's how we talked and felt about hipsters. So here we are looking at this as a weakness. But there I am using science to also show how this is a strength of Aquarian energy and Aquarius energy and 11th house energy, because how else can we build community until you find out what makes you different and what makes you individual and perhaps what makes you weird? Because there are going to be other people like you. We're never going to say that there is only one entire person in the entire world out of billions and billions and billions and billions of people that is the way that they are, and absolutely no one else has a single layer of themselves that is like that layer of that person. Like, we're not, that is impossible, just with the sheer mass of statistical numbers that we are dealing with, right? And it's like, again, we're talking about the collective whole here. So it's like within the collective whole, and when we say finding your tribe, and we also look at things like tribalism, that is simply seeking resonance. And that is that we have found our community, we have found our like-minded people that we are like. But guess what? You're also not like a bunch of people. You also disagree with a bunch of people. So when we take this to culture and society and tribalism and infighting within tribalism, it's like, oh, that community, that tribe of people looks at that other tribe of people, and they're like, we don't agree with you. We don't like you. We don't like the way that you are. And why aren't you like us? And you need to be like us. And this is where the law of detachment really transcends into a place of raising the consciousness of humanity, because the real lesson of Aquarius, or gift of Aquarius, is to teach that level of detachment in which you put your blinders on and enjoy the resonance of your own community and your own tribe without looking across the road, looking across the way, looking across the neighborhood, or in some cases, looking across the globe, looking across into another religion, looking across into another culture, whatever it is. Why are you looking over there and telling them to not be the way that they are just because you like the way that you are? Detach. That's where humanity is even going wrong, and I'm getting on a soapbox for this entire axis. I got on a soapbox for the Leo episode too. And the soapbox of Aquarius is that people need to find their community, find their tribe, find their like-minded people, find their tuning forks that they resonate with, that are either the same note or harmonious notes that sound beautiful and sound nice together and sound like classical music, sound like a symphony and orchestra, that makes your ears and heart and brain happy and gives you shivers throughout your entire body because that music sounds great. And you need to not pay attention to the other genres of music that are playing elsewhere by other orchestras or in other concert venues that you don't like. Maybe you don't like heavy metal music. Maybe you don't like screamo music. But guess what? Everybody that's at that concert does. So that's where we're really learning like when mainstream astrology takes these stereotypes and it's like Aquarius is weird and I don't like them and they need everybody to know that they're weird and different. Guess what? They're the community builders. They're the tribe builders. They're the organization builders. And they're also the trailblazers. They're also the revolutionaries. And so when they figure it out first and they do it first and they decide to self-express and they decide to be in the other end of their axis within their Leo energy, and they like to be in that self-expression, that genuine, authentic self, and put the spotlight of the sun on them to be seen and witnessed by everybody else over in the other end of the axis, that is how we create and build our communities and our organizations, and we can have an infinite amount. We can have an infinite amount of communities and organizations of like-minded people that can all be with each other and they can all exist, and then we can all coexist simultaneously without infighting and hurting each other, because that is how we really define the utopian vision of the collective whole that is ruled by this house, this sign, Aquarius, the 11th house, and this receptive part of this plus and the minus on this sign of the Zodiac, and the house and signs that came before it and rooted in the other end of the axis of Leo. And like also Capricorn was a projective house. So automatically the equal and opposite reaction of the house from moving from the 10th to the 11th is we move from projectivity to receptivity. I think that's perfect timing. I went over everything, all of your building blocks and why you learn them in that way, and all the spectrum of frequency of assignment of definition that exists in all of this energy. So if you guys want to connect with me in any other way, maybe on social media, you can find me as Brie Rhiannon on all platforms. So it's BRIE like the cheese, and then Rhiannon like the Fleetwood Mac song, RHIANNON. Whether you are watching the video on YouTube or you are listening to audio on Spotify or any other place you listen to podcasts, make sure that you are liking and subscribing. Support me, show this to other people. We're building community with this. Do you like astrology? Do you like science and all of these things combined? Did this help you? Did this help you learn astrology better? If we're building and seeking community and resonance with each other, share this. Share me. I also have a group. I actually have a community on Facebook. It's called Lunar Revolution. So if you just type that into the search bar, type Lunar Revolution. It's actually the title of my first book that I was talking about in the beginning of this episode with my different methods of manifesting with the moon, applying transits, turning things upside down on its head that other people did not teach me, and doing my Aquarius first house North Node stuff of trailblazing and being a revolutionary, but also it's obviously a play on words because the moon is revolving around Earth. But also, if we are engaged in a revolution in this lifetime and trying to change systems that we want to change, there you go. And we can also do it through living with the energy of the moon. And now Pepper has come to announce herself and say hi at the end of my episode. Yes, hi, baby. This is my oldest. This is Pepper. She's going to be 15 in July. And then also, if you want to book with me, you can do that on my website. I do more than just astrology. I am a psychic medium. I channel. I am a reader. I am an energy worker. You can book just energy work with me as well. That doesn't even come with the reading. So I do all kinds of things, you guys. And you can also be in a full year package with me in which we're working with each other one-on-one a lot. We're meeting twice a month. I'm doing energy work on you once a month. And we're going through a full lunar cycle together, a full Zodiac calendar together, a full Gregorian calendar together, and we can do whatever you want to do and learn whatever you want to learn in order to help navigate your human reality and existence in a better, more fulfilling way. This is a video game on expert level hard mode, as I like to put it, and we all just need help and we need tools, and we can do that together, and we can help each other if you want to do that. So whether you book a one-on-one session with me that is just a one-off session, whether that's a birth chart reading, if you're in a relationship, you want a synastry reading, you want the tea on your relationship through astrology, I can do that. I can do whatever, y'all. I would love to work with any of you one-on-one, and if I get to do that, I'm really, really excited. If all we do is connect on socials, did I mention I'm really only active on like Facebook and Threads? I do have a TikTok, even though I quit it. It's like October of 2024. I quit TikTok, and I felt all of the stuff that was coming down the pipeline of the ban and, the purchase and stuff that happened with the app. And I got very disillusioned with that app way, way, way in advance, because I'm a little bit predictive with a lot of things that I do. But it has a great repository of educational videos that I was doing TikTok for like a year and a half, or definitely over a year. So I technically have that. But yeah, so this is that. I think that, did I go over all the things and the stuff? I hope so. I'm going to have other podcast projects out at some point in my life. I am in my foray of getting out into the world, and I did a lot of test and measurement on my own methods, and before I wanted to put them out in the world, I wanted to prove to myself and also others through clients working one-on-one with a lot of people that they worked before I did also the Aquarius collective whole releasing out into the global world stuff, right? So that's it. And I hope this was helpful. I hope that you enjoyed it. And at the very least, I hope you were entertained. So check out the other episodes if you haven't already. If this happened to be the first one that you have found, I'm going over all 12 signs of the Zodiac, as well as an episode that goes over the construction of just the Zodiac wheel by itself, and building the axis through polarity and learning astrology in a new and different way with sciencey science things applied, because of Aquarius stuff, right? So I had fun. This was good, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you come back for more. I hope this was helpful, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.